So once again, how networks are supporting localization, and I'm looking forward to understand what that means. And also we will hear about what kind of mechanism or what kind of tools or tactics can we use to engage the members, to engage the memberships. Extremely important topic, especially nowadays when everyone has way too much things to do. So engaging in a new platform, in a new network, it's always a challenge, and you will hear some ideas and the experience of ISSA how to do it. So I think we will start now. So I would like to ask Liana and Eva to briefly introduce yourself and maybe your organization, and then please share your presentation with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Maxim. I'm happy to start. Welcome, everyone. It's very exciting to see all of you, and we're joined by the community of Places to Grow, but also by some ISSA members, and hopefully more will join later or listen to the recording. A few words about myself. I am the director of ISSA, the International Step-by-Step Association. We are the network for early childhood development for Europe and Central Asia. We will say more in the presentation. So for now, just more about ourselves. I come from Romania. Our office now is based in the Netherlands. And reflecting about this morning, actually, in all the jobs I've had, I've been somehow facilitating networks or supporting networks. So this has been the red line throughout my working years, and something that we're very passionate and excited to share with all of you about. Enough about me, so over to you.
Thank you. So my name is Eva Izsák. I'm the membership manager at ISSA, and I've been with the network for more than 20 years, so for quite a long time. And I still find it a fascinating network which keeps growing and evolving. And I'm Hungarian and moved to the Netherlands with ISSA.
Okay, so together we will first share with you a presentation. Thank you, Maxim, for the introduction. And what we will share is actually what we have learned over the last years, reading lots of books with conceptual frameworks that describe how networks operate, how to sustain a network, how networks make impact, and so forth. So our journey, especially last year, we had a strategic planning process. It was a very interesting exercise to actually put language to what it is we're already doing. So we will share with you some of because of course there are many schools of thoughts about networks, and we chose those that fit our work best and our approach to building and driving a network. So later on, if you're interested, we can send you some titles of the books that inspired us and where we picked up a lot of inspiration. So I'm going to start sharing my screen. And as Maxim was saying at the beginning, we encourage you to use the chat function to include any comments, reflections, or questions that you have as we go through the presentation. What we will do is between Eva and I cover some topics, then there will be time for questions, all of us together, and also breaking into two rooms. So as I mentioned, we will share with you a little bit what we are. We are a membership association, and we are joined by approximately 100 member organizations. And together as a network, we work in the field of early childhood, and we work towards high quality practices, policies, but also strong systems, strong ecosystems around young children and families where they find themselves in their communities. So again, this topic of strengthening the community, strengthening the ecosystem at the local level has been key to our work. We also very much raise awareness about the importance of the early years, but also about high quality, equitable, integrated services. So this is to give you an idea of our content and our how we are set up as a membership association, but also what drives us, what unites us. Members come from all over Europe, so that's also special about our network, is that we unite Western Europe, Eastern Europe, and countries of Central Asia. So altogether, a very diverse region, but we have also much in common. Moving now to some of the conceptual frameworks. So I was writing in the chat, if you can still do it, if you feel like, what do you think of when you think of a network? Networks are all around us in society, but also in nature. A forest is a network. If you think of all the trees, the roots underneath the forest actually form a network. So it's something all around us. And in our work, we're trying to understand how does that translate to the impact we want to see. So that's moving now to another concept, the difference between, for instance, social networks, as we're all part of different social media platforms or other informal social networks where we meet in person. A family is a network also. But what distinguishes impact networks from other kinds of networks is that they have intentional design. So given the focus, they are designed in a certain way to best address that focus. And impact networks address either social issues or environmental issues. Again, they can be of many types: associations, coalitions, partnerships. These are the associations, the coalitions can have a formal framework, like they're legal entities, but there can also be non-formal coming together in terms of collaborations or partnerships. Another interesting concept is the one of generative networks. These are the kind of networks that constantly evolve, and they have as a goal not to address a single outcome. So for instance, a coalition could have as a goal one single outcome. We wish to influence the education law in a particular way, and this is how we will do it. Generative networks, for instance, if you work in the area of climate change or early childhood development, you are looking at different outcomes. You wish the home environment to be strong and supportive. You wish services to be of high quality for children and families. You wish the society to be driven by equity and social justice so that young children are not discriminated against. So again, there are multiple outcomes, and usually generative networks have a sustained flow of activities that constantly generates these new outcomes. And members inside these networks work in clusters, but they are all trying to achieve the coherent goal, in our case, holistic early childhood development, so that every young child can thrive. And also adaptability is very important, because the context in which these generative impact networks are working changes all the time. We live in a very volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous world. You may have heard of this term VUCA: volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. There are crises that come up. There are social issues like poverty, inequity. So especially in such times, networks need to adapt and constantly evolve, regroup themselves for the outcomes they wish to co-create. Final concept here is you can look at a network as a combination between organization and community. So an NGO is an organization, may not necessarily be a network. But the moment you have a community, and we will say more about that in a minute, and the mechanisms to organize that community, that's what distinguishes a network from other types of actors. And the driving question is, what can we do together that we can't do alone? Because again, you can be a very successful NGO and you're doing your mission. And of course, one can argue you can do it better in partnerships, but being a network is much more around organization and community. So again, why networks? Why should we invest in networks? Why should we invest time and effort contributing and benefiting from a network? Is that they have a very strong advantage. Again, compared to organizations that focus on one single thing, like you're a research center and that's what the center is doing. Everyone in that center is a researcher. They are very much alike. Whereas in a network, you can have researchers working together with practitioners, working with policymakers, with advocates, with activists. So there is a much greater potential to work across disciplines, across sectors, across borders. There's value in spreading knowledge and sharing, but also collaboration comes out of networks. And we will again say more a bit about this a bit later. As a result, those who are active members engaging in networks gain new knowledge and partners, but also become stronger and more resilient. We find that working as a network is especially important in complex sectors like early childhood. The early years as services and as places where children grow and develop belong to many groups, many sectors, many stakeholders are involved. So especially in this kind of complexity, we need to have this network way of working. And also in times of crisis, when we don't only have complexity, but we also have chaos. Imagine as the war affected Ukraine, or in these days also Palestine, how much that complexity has increased given the crisis with children affected, internally displaced, refugees, lives lost, and so forth. So again, especially in complex area and during crisis, it's very important to use this intentional design and the focus. And instead of focusing on, here's the challenge, we will find one solution, again, we are making sense of the challenge, and through experimentation, there will be different kinds of emergent outcomes, not just one single bullet solution. We will perhaps have more time in the small groups discussion, but these are the key 5 areas that we see from our experience as ISSA, but also all the literature we've had and the self-reflection discussions with others who study network. It's very important to clarify the purpose. Why are members of a network coming together? What are those emergent outcomes they try to achieve under the shared vision and shared purpose? Who are the right members? Are we missing anyone? Do we have sufficient members? Are they from the right areas, the right geographical areas or focus areas? How do we cultivate trust? Again, more about this, but without trust in a network, there's hardly any connectivity or meaningful collaboration. Then there is also the need to coordinate activities. So the network hub or some sort of mechanisms to constantly work as a network weaver or as a connector. And finally, mechanisms to support collaboration for impact. I will now pass on to Eva, and I will come back after she shares from her experience as the membership manager.
Yes, thank you, Liana. So the motivation to join, it's the shared purpose, but I would mention that the shared values are equally important. So if these two are matching, then I think it's very likely that that the member will stay and engage in the network. As Liana mentioned, it has to be very well defined, both the purpose and the values, and we have to be articulate about it. So it's well known what are the values and what is the joint purpose of our network. Then the motivation to stay, so it's the professional community, the connections, and the peer learning among members. So the stronger these professional connections are, of course, the higher the motivation for members to stay and engage. So for engagement within a network, different mechanisms can be created, and it has to be based on the needs and the availability of members. And based on that knowledge, we can create different opportunities for members to engage in peer learning. And I think individualized approaches are also important, because in case of the ISSA network, we are so diverse that that one size doesn't fit for all. So what works for one group of members, it doesn't work for the others. So it's important to get to know the members, to learn about the needs, and also to be brave enough to experiment and pilot and ideas, and then ask for feedback and then adjust if needed. And we also shouldn't be afraid to make changes or stop doing something if it's not working, and then we try something new. Then I would say that the barriers are also important to be aware of. So we need to map in the networks which are the main barriers, and how can we reduce or remove these. So just to mention a few of these, it can be a lack of clarity, lack of shared activities, lack of capacity. It can be a language issue, or a weak network mindset, or unequal opportunities for engagement. So again, it's important to be aware of this and be proactive on behalf of the network to address this. And I think the joy and fun, it's also very important to keep professionals within the network. At least in the ISSA network, we always try to incorporate some fun, joyful activity when we have a meeting of the network. Then the network facilitation and weaving. So here, when a new member joins, then we try to, if they are not connected already to other members in the network, we try to make introductions of similar members so they can explore joint activities. And we also have joint project initiatives, thematic groups based on the interest of members, and this can be led both by member organizations or by the network hub, by us. Peer learning activities are a very popular cooperation and collaboration mechanism among members. So together they can initiate a joint activity and explore it together. It can be a study visit, or developing a new manual, or something else, depending on their interest. And we are also focusing on the visibility of making members visible. So on the ISSA website, we have a member in focus section when articles and interviews with members are available. And collaboration comes from all these relationships. So the more relationships there are within the network, the closer we get with a higher impact and better results in the collaboration among members. And what I would like to mention one more thing is that so it is important to cultivate trust on an ongoing basis. And again, going back to the shared values and working towards the same shared purpose to build new connections and new collaboration. Thank you. We can go to the next slide. And the role of the ISSA Network Hub. So we define these roles in our new strategy. So we are, and all these reflect to what Liana mentioned, what I mentioned, that we are a service provider. So we contribute to knowledge sharing and learning opportunities, and this happens through initiatives, webinars, events of members, and of course the ISSA conference, which will happen again this year in Bulgaria. Then we are a facilitator and a network weaver to create connections among members. So we are cultivating meaningful relationships and building a strong collaborative culture, which is one of the key roles of the Network Hub. And we are also a generator of new knowledge and new approaches. This also happens through joint initiatives and peer learning activities. We are a catalyst and advocate through initiatives. Some of our initiatives has an advocacy component, and we do our best to incorporate it into other activities as much as possible, and also in our website. ISSA is also a knowledge broker, so we have a very rich knowledge hub on the website where more than 100 resources and good practices are freely available on different languages, so you can also explore it and use the resources which are available. Then we are a member of other networks, so with like-minded networks, we establish mutual memberships, and through this we bring new knowledge into the ISSA network. And lastly, we are also a storyteller about the impact of the networks of members. We do this via our various communication channels, also on social media and through the website. And then thank you. Over to you, Liana.
Thank you so much, Eva. So we quote someone we worked with during last year. I go back a little bit to the slide before, and it's his very inspiring words were like, "The purpose brought me here," a member would say, "and the people keep me here." So again, what Eva stressed, we cannot stress enough this power of connectivity and shared purpose, shared value, but also to keep in mind that part of the, as Eva described, part of what prevents member engagement can also be lack of resources. And it's a known fact that if an organization struggles, they have less time, less energy, and capacity to engage. So again, it's really important to reach out to those that perhaps engage less because of these reasons. We wanted, before we go, excuse me about moving the slides, before we go to talk a little bit about what we understand by localization, we wanted to illustrate that concept and our approach to it. Using a large initiative, our Ukraine response, which we are still very much focusing on since the first days of the war. And you see, with our members, we immediately outlined a framework for our actions. So as a network, we articulated these areas. And the first one and the second one are very much about strengthening the community. In fact, all of them, but these particular ones looking at the practitioners, the frontline workers, and also the local authorities. We used everything we had as a network. And here we try to unpack in clear ingredients, if you wish, how we were able over these last 2 years of the war to create results and to impact in a positive way the lives of children affected. We mobilized the relationships, the trust, we used the knowledge that existed already, and the experience, if you wish, the muscle memory of the network to collaborate. Our members have collaborated for a long time, more than 25 years now, 30 for some of them, because we built on the step-by-step network. So this muscle memory of collaboration is activated very fast in a network. We then used these advantages to create a two-way pathway for exchanging information, to put early years on the agenda, to use all the existing mechanisms and knowledge that we had. And our members themselves in countries affected, Ukraine, but also countries receiving refugees, they themselves used network approaches, using their knowledge of the context, using the partnerships, they have the links, but also participatory approaches to build alliances at the country level. So there's this constant flow of information also at the country level, but in the wider European network as well, the close collaboration. One example where we leverage these relationships, partnerships, the learning community, but also the ability to raise money and channel money to our members is a large initiative where we created a package that supports psychological first aid and working with trauma-informed approaches, putting together existing resources from the internet, but also from our network. And it's still rolling out. We have trained together with members and partners more than 200 master trainers who now are training thousands of practitioners. We made this package available also for those working right now in Palestine. So what we see, this all sounds really positive, collaborative impact. However, there are many challenges. And here we list just a few. We saw that in general, early learning and care are not prioritized in the context of war-affected children, but also more broadly. We see that funders prefer to work with the same large NGOs. Usually funding is short-term, and there is rather an ecosystem among international players instead of a healthy ecosystem. So for the community-based solutions also, local actors are often not sufficiently recognized. In case of crisis-affected areas, we see that only a very tiny fraction actually goes to the organizations closest to young children and their families. And we see this time and again. We recently spoke with colleagues from Turkey, and they shared that. I see Nurpur is with us online. We heard from our member organizations in Turkey that as well, soon after the earthquake, very little funding went to those closest to families. The same large organizations tend to come in and often use this kind of top-down approach. So we will end in a minute, but we try to summarize what we understand by localization. In fact, we would urge not even to use this term, but rather to frame it as an effort to strengthen the local early years ecosystem. And this happens not overnight after the crisis happened. This needs to be a long-term investment so that communities are prepared for anything that will come in this VUCA world, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. So for this, we need to use a tested model for knowledge creation and sharing using a network approach. There should be participatory mechanisms. Again, the network is well positioned because members on the ground are closest to the challenge, closest to the children and families. A network mindset is needed, and this means also an equal distribution of funding, more equity in terms of distribution of roles and recognizing each other's strengths. But also we need links across countries. Again, a network can do this very effectively. And ultimately a sustained effort to build a strong, responsive ecosystem. So we will leave you with some dilemmas. How can we as a community working in the early years move to this notion that we persuade governments, we persuade funders, we persuade different international actors that we need a long-term investment in the local actors and not a one-time intervention soon after the crisis. Early learning, early care need to be high on the agenda. We need community-based solutions, but also a more equitable way of getting the funding more directly to the local actors, and ideally not a proliferation of programs, but rather investing in the preparedness of local responders and a robust ecosystem. Here you can see our contact information. Do not hesitate to write to us if you would like to continue this discussion, but also do visit our website, as Eva already mentioned, lots of resources and lots of stories from this kind of work.
All right, thank you very much for your presentation, Liana and Eva. And now we have time for the participants to ask questions. You can either unmute yourself and ask a question, or if you prefer, you can leave your question in the chat and we will read it out. So I'm wondering whether anyone has a question to Liana or Eva or both of them. We'll use the tool of awkward silence to wait for the first question.
Or also sharing if any of the challenges or approaches resonate with your work. Comments are also welcome.
Well, I guess, hi, me. I guess I can maybe just check the page, but since we are here, just, how is it possible to start, collaborate or work with you? What kind of people are the most needed at the moment, or what kind of background and, is the most required, basically, for now.
Would you share with us where you come from and the organization?
Well, no, I'm not working for any organization at the moment. I'm traveling around Europe for now, but I'm based in Iceland. That's my headquarters, let's call it. And well, I have I'm just freelancer interpreter for now, but I have background in somatic work and, a lot of things. That's why I ask what is the most environmental issues. So it's just very wide the spectrum. And I'm very interested in this. So.
Well, I think we from ISSA, we are a network of organization, but we definitely welcome engagement from individuals and peers from around the world that share the same focus. So we invite you to join us on social media, for instance, and there are many opportunities we share that are webinars or as Eva mentioned, the conference we will put in the chat, but we try to find that meaningful shared interest, let's say, that would invite participants or invite individuals either in an initiative or in an event that we're hosting or making this kind of connection. So I think the best is to get to know each other better. As Eva mentioned, this kind of collaboration comes from interactions, from being connected.
Yeah, but I mean to work with you, like to help you create more network or deeper. That's what I mean.
Well, we are looking for member organizations, for instance, in Iceland. So if you know of early childhood organizations in early childhood, then we would be very happy if you made introductions also in other countries.
Yeah, unfortunately, we have not a very strong representation from some parts of Europe. So because we would like to see Europe as a very united space, Europe and Central Asia, Eva in particular is working very much on identifying and linking back to what we shared, who is missing from the table. And I think certainly to identify strong organizations, strong or growing, not so strong necessarily, but organizations that could help us do even more on behalf of young children coming from different countries as well.
Thank you.
Daniela, anyone else with a comment, feedback, question? If not, then I will. No? Okay, maybe later. Liana, I was wondering, like, connecting to Daniela's question, whether you have some specific goals or projects that you have in front of you that you are thinking to use the power of your network to achieve or to move forward. If there are any, can you share them with us?
Yeah, we definitely have a number of large ongoing initiatives right now. One of them is related to equity for especially in Roma young children in our region. I mentioned already our work supporting refugee children. Another large initiative is connected to the workforce. So we are using, again, the power of being a network and connecting to networks that are our partners in the Africa continent, Asia Pacific, the Arab world. So we're also, as Eva mentioned, we're connecting with similar networks so that we don't each reinvent the wheel. So in our workforce initiative, as an example, right now we have two big focus areas. One is to support the workforce, those working with young children, to be able to work with children's socio-emotional development, but also supporting the workforce to take care of their own well-being and mental health. So especially those practitioners that work with highly traumatized children, we have a learning exchange now across the continents affected by crisis. So the Asia continent affected by huge climate-induced crisis, and how those working with young children are not only supporting children and families, but deal with their own well-being. So I think these are some examples where we have areas of focus. We also have a large initiative and a set of resources that support home visiting. In many countries of Eastern Europe, the home visiting services are under the Ministry of Health. So our focus is to bring integrated approaches into the health system. So on our website, you will see the health systems for early child development, where we try to, with UNICEF colleagues, we try to reach health practitioners, health ministries, but also service providers, and discuss how can the health system, this is just one example, move from a model which is 100% medical model to one that also pays attention to development. So supporting mothers with young babies to understand that children learn to play and speaking and reading with the baby. So how can also health practitioners do more with regards to child development? So all of these, Maxim, to answer your question, is we're trying to identify focus areas in where we see gaps when it comes to holistic child development, and who are those actors that we try to support or persuade or bring a change. And the hardest to change, and that's where a network is really powerful, because you work at it day in, day out, year in, year out. The hardest to change are mindsets. How, for instance, those working in the health sector view children. Because if they view children as patients, they're not going to immediately think of development. So again, this is perhaps a very trivial example, but the changing mindset also comes, how do we view children? How do we view families? How do we understand the services they need? What best supports child development, learning, and well-being?
Right, thank you very much. Meanwhile, anyone else has a question? If not, I still have some. So Liana, you were talking about the importance of the relationships in these networks, or maybe Eva or both. Can you maybe elaborate on it a little bit, like why is it important, and how you build relationships? I think it's kind of seems like one of the most important thing in networks.
Yeah, I can share, and then Eva, please add. Again, relationships are based on trust. And trust means also speaking very openly about the different levels in which we engage. That's also connected with our shared purpose. There is the personal level where we are passionate about, each of us. There is also the professional level because of what we focus in our jobs and what drives us in our career. There are also organizational interests of members in a network. So unless we're very clear and aligned on what these are and be very open about it, there can be instances when, in fact, with intention or without intention, we have competition or we have duplication, or actually we don't have the same goals or the same approach, So the most important is to have a dialogue. And we may not always agree. I think to be part of a network is also to accept that there will be disagreement. One particular example could be that in the early years field, there might be those who believe having a 1-year compulsory preschool education is very good and should be adopted by every country. Others may argue actually making it compulsory punishes the most disadvantaged in a community. So perhaps there is no right and wrong. Maybe, I don't know if this is the best example, but the most important is to have that dialogue and to explore together different approaches. And I think Eva mentioned it, relationships are strong also as participants in a network really get to know each other, but also find that they have the same values, they have, there's a kind of a chemistry, which is harder to explain. And I think, yeah, Eva, I'm curious what you will add.
Yes, thank you. So I would say that it happens through conveying members. So that's the best way to create connections. And also our experience with the pandemic, that online it doesn't happen in the same intensity or depth. So it's a good way to share knowledge and exchange a bit, but you don't experience chemistry, I think, online, or at least not on that level as you do in person. So in-person meetings are very important, and I think these are key to make it happen if you can afford in your network. That's something of a challenge in the ISSA network, because we used to have more funding for in-person meeting before the pandemic. Now we have less. So we had a very successful event in Opatija last September. And I think it was very important also for newer members to get to know the network, but also to just to create again this professional community and enjoy the presence of each other. And so this year, we are again planning an international conference after 5 years to again get members together, but also other professionals to create a platform for exchange and collaboration.
Thank you.
If I can add one more idea, Maxim, your question made me think that and Eva mentioned, it's really important to nurture these relationships, and that's the big role of the network hub, is to be that weaver, to be that connector, because often members, participants in a network have their day job, have their life, their families. The reality is they don't think about the network every day. You know, they forget sometimes about the network. So they work on a particular challenge and they don't think, oh, perhaps somebody in the country next door has already solved that challenge. But it's our role from the network hub to constantly bring such news to light so that let's use this word, we nudge the members to remember the network a little bit more often. And I think it's also important to keep in mind part of being a network, that from these relationships and connections, collaboration happens, but collaboration can be both planned and unplanned. So often we have the strongest impact from collaboration that came out of serendipity. You know, we had a particular convening, gathering, members used also the coffee breaks, and the strongest partnership was built, and then like a snowball effect, engaging more. So I think a bit like in a garden, you know, some seeds you can plant, but you never know how the wind might bring other seeds for different plants to grow. So we need to also acknowledge the power of networks for this space for creativity and collaboration that comes from connections.
That's a good one. Couldn't agree more. Okay. I think we will move towards the breakout rooms. How it work? So we have two topics that will be led. One of the topics will be led by Liana. The other topic will be led by Eva. And here are these two topics. And maybe I will ask Liana and Eva just to explain briefly what you would like to discuss other topics.
With pleasure, Maxim. But I see Susanna has her hand up, and perhaps we could take her comment before we do it.
Yes, sure. Sorry, I haven't noticed. Thanks. Go ahead, Susanna.
Hello, hi. I'm coming from Slovakia and I work for NGO, Centrum, and we provide mainly trainings and advocacy and trainings for mainstream teachers. But we're planning to go into a project and provide trainings also for early years education teachers, especially into a more respected approach. And that should be happening next year. And it's a kind of new field for us as an organization. So I'm just wondering whether you got some network supports already set up in Slovakia, which we could join later on, and maybe also other provisions, or I don't know what else you can kind of help with as a network. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Susanna. Yes, that's at the core of our work, is supporting those who work in early education. And I have two suggestions. One is, as Eva mentioned, do visit our knowledge hub, because we have a wealth of resources that support high quality education, early education. And also in Slovakia, a partner of Places to Grow is also the Wide Open School Foundation, which is an ISSA member. And over the years, we have trained many of their trainers in quality, using quality resource pack, how to engage those working in kindergartens, for instance, in professional development that is based on self-reflection. We also have, actually Eva could put the link, we have a really exciting initiative right now to answer to Maxim when he asked earlier how we use the network for initiatives. It's called the Green Learning Community, because there is value still about engaging online. So if you check that initiative, it connects kindergartens from across Europe. And it's an online platform where anybody can join. So all the teachers that you will be working with or others from different NGOs. And it's a European Commission funded project. With the funding, we are working with some kindergartens to create virtual study visits, which are recorded, and it becomes almost like a documentary. So you can also watch the recording. It's a guided learning. There is the visit, there are discussions about their pedagogical approaches, examples of activities with children. So it's a very powerful learning tool. And what's interesting is that the project also aimed to build digital competencies of those working in the early years. So if you look at some of the recordings, you will find a webinar on digital. But again, contact Wide Open School organization. Their name is Szkola Dokoran, and they have, again, a network of trainers. We're also interested, if you wish, partners, international partners, either from ISSA, I'm not sure what kind of a project it is, but we can also connect you with other countries as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Zuzana, I would probably also mention that there is a work going on to establish a Slovakian early childhood development platform. And this work is done by Carpathian Foundation Slovakia and the Socia, who are based in Bratislava, by Vladislav Matej. So if you know them, please get in touch with them. I think the whole platform is in a very early stage, but they had already 2 or 3 meetings. I think it's a good place to be and to get aware what's happening in this field in Slovakia.
Thank you. Yeah, we've been cooperating with Karpatska Nadacja. Yeah, thanks.
Here we go. Okay, back to the breakout rooms. So Liana and Eva, please just tell briefly what is this going to be about.
Yeah, so we will go a little bit deeper in 2 areas. In my group, we can go more into the shared purpose and how to bring clarity about that, but we can also share with you some ways to understand and assess the health of a network. We see it more as a discussion, so you're welcome to join also with your sharing. We don't really have a presentation, it will be more a discussion. And Eva?
Yes, also it will not be a presentation, but more like a discussion about topics you are interested in, member engagement. But so if there is interest, I can also share more information what we do about engagement, what have we tried, what are our experiences. So you can learn more about this, but we can also discuss the issues you are interested in.
Okay, and the way it works, you will have the opportunity to choose between the rooms. But if you don't choose, my colleague Teresa will put you in one of them. Very well. Okay, thank you very much. And I think we are coming to the end. So I would like to thank Liana and Eva again for sharing their insights and thinking around networks. I think to be able to work on this complex challenge that early childhood development presents, there is no other way than together. And I think networks are bringing those actors who need to work together on these challenges. So I a true believer that this is the way forward. But also we should acknowledge that networking and collaborating is hard. Sometimes it's extremely hard. And you know, bringing people together and helping them to collaborate, it's a very noble mission. So come on, ISSA, thank you very much for doing this. If you are interested in more about networking, I would recommend you to attend the ISSA conference, which will be in Bulgaria. Eva shared the link to the conference where you can check out the agenda and apply or buy a ticket. We also have a conference by Places to Grow that is also about this topic of working together and interdisciplinary collaboration. It's going to happen in Prague in November. Feel free to check out the website. And also, if you are interested in more collective learning events that we are organizing, please subscribe to our social media channels that you can find on our website, or I can see Teresa is sharing with you our LinkedIn page where you can have updates about the next collective learning events. So thank you very much for coming today and finding some time for this event. It was very nice to host you all, and hope to see you in the future, hopefully not through a screen, but maybe in person on one of the conferences. I wish you a pleasant day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Have a
Thank
nice
you.
day.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
everyone.
Bye. Bye. Bye.